The stars looked peaceful from orbit. Below them, the planet was quiet, empty and covered in yellow dust. There were no cities, no green forests, no signs of life, just a silent world, forgotten by time. Lieutenant Jack Reed sat at his control panel, checking readings on the small human escort ship Marlin. He yawned and stretched. This was supposed to be an easy job. Escort a Cirellan diplomatic ship to a neutral station and go home. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous. But then the lights flickered. Power surge? He muttered, tapping the screen. Before he could react, the ship shook violently. Alarms blared. He was thrown against his seat as a wave of energy hit the ship like a hammer. The engines failed. The emergency lights came on, red and blinking. "Control, this is Marlin. We've lost power, going down." No answer. Outside the window, Jack saw the Cirellan ship, a sleek, curved vessel spinning out of control. Fire trailed behind it. It was crashing too. Jack gritted his teeth as the planet below grew closer. The ship's systems were offline. He couldn't control it. He only had time to grab the crash harness and pull it tight before everything went black. Jack woke up to silence. Dust floated in the air, lit by a soft orange glow from the cracked hull. He coughed and looked around. The Marlin was ruined. The control panel was dead, the windows shattered. But he was alive. Lucky break, he whispered. He unbuckled himself and climbed out of the wreck. The air outside was dry, but breathable. The sky was a pale gold, the sun dim and distant. The land stretched out in all directions. Rocky hills, sand, and no water. Jack walked around the ship, checking what he could salvage. Most of it was destroyed, but he found a backpack, a survival kit, a flare gun, and a small drone that still worked. It was something. He turned in a slow circle, scanning the horizon. He knew the Cirellan ship had gone down nearby, but he didn't know if anyone had survived. Still, he couldn't leave someone behind, not even an alien. He set out in the direction he last saw the other ship. Commander Velthari groaned as she opened her eyes. Her head throbbed. Sparks danced above her from broken wires. Her ship, the Nelarai, had crashed hard. The control room was crushed, and she had been thrown from her seat. She sat up slowly, checking for injuries. Her shoulder was bleeding, but nothing was broken. Her dark silver-blue armor had taken most of the hit. She pressed a button on her wristcom. No signal. No response. She sighed and stood up. The crash had broken the hull open, letting sand blow inside. She stepped outside and looked at the dead world around her. It was dry, cold, and lifeless. "This is not how a mission should end," she said softly. As she checked the area, she heard something in the distance, a small buzzing sound. She turned quickly, drawing her energy blade. A small flying drone hovered over a ridge, blinking with a blue light. It wasn't hers. Then a figure climbed over the hill. "Human." The man raised his hands in peace. "Hey," he said, voice friendly. "You're alive." Velthari narrowed her eyes. "Lieutenant Reed, I presume?" Jack nodded. "You remember my name. That's a good start." She lowered her weapon but didn't relax. "What do you want?" "Just making sure you weren't dead," Jack said, "and maybe see if we can work together." Velthari studied him. His face was tired, covered in dust, but calm. Not scared, not angry, just practical. "Our governments are allies," she said, "but our people are not used to working side by side." "Well," Jack said, smiling a little, "first time for everything." Velthari looked back at her broken ship. Smoke still rose from it. There would be no help coming soon. "We'll need food, water, shelter," she said, "and a plan." Jack nodded. "Agreed. My ship is a mess, but I've got a few supplies. We can build something together, at least until rescue shows up." "If it shows up," she replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Two strangers, from different worlds. But now, stuck together, alone on a lifeless planet. Jack reached into his pack and pulled out a water bottle. offering it to her. Velthari looked at him, then took it. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. The sun rose, slowly over the empty planet, casting long shadows across the sand. Jack and Velthari stood outside their shelter, looking at the strange ruins that had caught their attention for days. "Those buildings," Jack said, pointing to the crumbling stone walls half buried in dust. "They're old. Very old. But they look important." Velthari nodded. "The symbols carved on the walls are not from any known language, but they seem to tell a story, something about the past." Curious and cautious, they decided to explore the ruins more closely. The entrance was hidden under a fallen archway, covered in thick layers of sand. Together they cleared the way, revealing a doorway carved from smooth, dark stone. Velthari touched the surface carefully. "This is not natural rock. It has been shaped by intelligent hands." Jack pulled out his flashlight and stepped inside first. The air was cool and still, dusty, but safe. Walls lined with strange drawings glowed, faintly from old forgotten energy sources. "Look at this," Jack said, pointing to a large circular device on one wall. "It still has power." Velthari scanned the room with her sensors. This place was not just a home. It was a laboratory or maybe a control center. They moved deeper into the ruins, finding more machines covered in dust and sand. Some looked like weapons, others like tools for communication. But everything was broken or incomplete. Suddenly, Jack's foot struck something hard beneath the sand. He bent down and pulled out a small metal cube covered in symbols similar to those on the walls. "What do you think this is?" Jack asked, turning the cube in his hands. Velthari examined it closely. "It looks like a data storage device. If we can activate it, it might tell us more about this place." Jack nodded. "Let me try." He connected the cube to a small reader from his pack. The device hummed and lights flickered. Then, images appeared on a small screen. A star map, a city in ruins, and a figure standing beside a massive machine. Velthari's eyes widened. "That machine, it looks like the one we saw outside near the crash site." Jack frowned. So this place was important, maybe even dangerous. As they studied the data, the ground suddenly trembled beneath them. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jack grabbed Velthari's arm. "An earthquake," she said calmly. "We need to move fast." They hurried back to the entrance, but a large rockfall blocked their path. Panic rose in Jack's chest. "Another way?" he asked, looking around. Velthari pointed to a narrow tunnel leading deeper underground. "This way. It might lead to an exit or more clues." They squeezed through the dark passage, careful not to slip. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, filled with strange machines, some still glowing faintly. "This must be the heart of the ruins," Velthari whispered. Jack approached a large console covered in alien symbols. He pressed a few buttons, and suddenly, the room lit up with blue light. Holographic images appeared, showing the history of an ancient civilization that had once lived here. "They were scientists and explorers," Jack said, amazed. "They built this place to study the stars and other worlds." Velthari watched the images closely. But they disappeared. Something must have happened. Jack looked around nervously. "Do you think it was a war? Or a natural disaster?" Velthari shook her head. "I don't know. But whatever it was, they left warnings. One hologram showed a symbol, a circle with a triangle inside it. Below was text neither of them could read, but it felt like a warning or a challenge." Jack studied the symbols on the machines. "Maybe this place was designed to test those who find it." Velthari nodded slowly. "Or to protect something important." They spent hours exploring, learning what they could. Jack managed to repair a small power core, bringing some machines to life. The room filled with soft humming sounds and blinking lights. Suddenly, a door slid open in the far wall. Behind it was a small chamber with a pedestal. On the pedestal lay a crystal glowing softly with a blue light. Jack reached out carefully and picked up the crystal. The air around them seemed to shimmer. Velthari watched him closely. "Be careful." We don't know what it does. Jack studied the crystal. It felt warm, almost alive. Maybe it's a power source, he said. Or a key. As he held it, a low rumble shook the chamber. The machines around them began to pulse with light. Velthari stepped forward. I think we have triggered something. Suddenly, the room flooded with holographic images. A message appeared in a language they could not read, but the feeling was clear. This was a test, a challenge to prove their worth. Jack looked at Velthari. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. Velthari nodded. Together, they left the ruins, carrying the crystal carefully. Outside, the sky was growing dark with the coming storm. As they hurried back to their shelter, Velthari glanced at Jack. This planet is more than empty dust. It holds secrets that could change everything. Jack smiled. And we just became part of its story. The wind picked up, swirling sand around them, but Jack and Velthari walked side by side, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The sun hung low in the dusty sky, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. Jack and Velthari sat on the rocky ground beside the wreckage of the Marlin. The quiet was heavy between them. Both were tired and uncertain, but they knew one thing. Survival meant working together. Velthari broke the silence. This planet is empty. No water, no plants. Nothing alive, at least not that I can see. Jack nodded. I've been scanning for signs of life with my drone. Nothing. But the atmosphere is breathable, and the temperature isn't extreme. We can last for days, maybe weeks, if we find shelter and ration supplies. Velthari's sharp eyes scanned the horizon. The storms are the biggest threat. Sandstorms can appear without warning. We need to find or build shelter fast. Jack pulled out a small toolkit from his backpack. I think I can fix some parts of the ship's exterior to make a temporary shelter. It won't be comfortable, but it will protect us from the worst of the weather. Velthari looked at him carefully. You expect me to trust you? We come from different worlds that barely trust each other. Jack smiled a little. Trust doesn't come easy, but right now we don't have a choice. I've seen what happens when we fight each other. I want to survive. I want you to survive. That's enough for me. Velthari studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Very well, we will try. But if you betray me, I won't, Jack said firmly. The two set to work. Jack gathered parts from the broken ship while Velthari used her strength and agility to carry heavier debris. Together they built a small shelter, metal panels arranged like walls with strips of insulating fabric Velthari tore from her damaged armor. Inside the shelter, the air was cooler and less dusty. Jack used a solar charger to power a small light. Velthari checked their supplies. Some food bars, water packs, medical kits. Not much, Jack said, but enough for now. Velthari nodded. We should ration carefully. No waste. As night fell, the temperature dropped sharply. The two sat close to the light, the silence now less heavy but still filled with unspoken questions. Tell me about your people, Jack said, breaking the quiet. Velthari looked into the flickering light. The Cirellans are proud warriors and explorers. Our history is long. We have fought many wars but also built great alliances. Humans. You are new to the stars, but brave, Jack smiled. We've made mistakes too, but we don't give up easily. Velthari raised an eyebrow. That much is clear. Over the next days, their partnership grew stronger. Jack taught Velthari how to use some human tools and technology. She showed him ways to move quietly and read the subtle signs of the planet's harsh environment. They explored nearby ruins, ancient structures half buried in sand. The buildings were strange and silent, covered with symbols, neither of them understood. But inside, Jack found parts of an old power source still faintly humming. This could be useful, he said. If I can fix it, maybe we can power some equipment or send a signal. Velthari nodded. We must try. Someone needs to know we are here. One evening, as they worked side by side, Jack looked at Velthari with new respect. You know, he said, I never thought I'd be here, stranded with an alien. But you're not what I expected. Velthari smiled softly. Nor I with a human, but survival teaches us many things. Their laughter was quiet, but real. For a moment, the emptiness of the planet seemed less lonely, but danger waited. One morning, Jack's drone returned with a warning. The planet's storms were stronger and closer than before. Dark clouds rolled over the horizon, swirling with fierce winds. We need to prepare, Jack said urgently. This could be the worst storm yet. Velthari helped him reinforce their shelter, sealing cracks and adding layers of fabric. They gathered water and secured their supplies. As the storm hit, the wind howled like a beast. Sand pounded their shelter, shaking the metal walls. Jack and Velthari huddled inside, their hands brushing as they held on tight. When the storm finally passed, the world outside was transformed. The sky was clearer, but the landscape had shifted. Rocks moved. Dunes changed shape. Velthari stepped outside, breathing deeply. The planet is harsh. It will test us every day. Jack joined her, looking up at the stars, now visible again. We're going to have to be smarter and stronger if we want to survive. Velthari placed a hand on his shoulder. Together, then? Jack nodded. Together. Days turned into weeks. They built a small garden using recycled water and soil from the ruins. Jack managed to repair parts of the power source, lighting up their shelter with steady energy. Velthari hunted small animals, not many, but enough to add fresh food to their supplies. Despite the challenges, their bond grew. They learned, from each other, their differences becoming strengths. Velthari's calm strategy balanced Jack's quick thinking. Jack's humor lightened Velthari's seriousness. One evening, Velthari said quietly, "I never thought I would trust a human like this." Jack smiled, looking at the stars. Maybe humans and Cirillans aren't so different after all. As the planet's twin moons rose, they sat side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Because alone, they were weak. But together, they were strong. The sky above the empty planet was a deep, dark blue as evening approached. Jack and Velthari sat outside their shelter, watching the stars slowly appear one by one. The two moons hung low, casting soft light over the rocky landscape. It was quiet, peaceful, but also full of questions. Jack broke the silence. "You ever think about home?" Velthari looked at him, her eyes reflecting the moons. "Every day. My homeworld is far from here. It is a place of forests and oceans where the air smells of rain. I miss it." Jack nodded. "I understand. I come from Earth. It's blue and green, full of life. But here, on this planet, everything feels empty." Velthari smiled faintly. "Empty, yes, but not without meaning. The ruins we found show that this world was once full of life, of knowledge. Maybe it still has something to teach us." Jack glanced up at the stars. "It feels strange to be so far from everyone. Sometimes I wonder if we are alone in this universe." Velthari shook her head. "We are never truly alone. The stars connect all of us in ways we do not always see." The wind stirred gently, carrying the cold desert air. Jack looked at Velthari and noticed a sadness behind her. "Strong face, what worries you?" he asked softly. She hesitated. "The silence of this place, it is too quiet. The energy pulse that knocked us down. I think it was no accident. Someone or something wanted to trap us here." Jack frowned. "You think it was a trap?" Velthari nodded. "Yes, the ancient machine, the tests in the ruins, they are meant to challenge visitors, but maybe also to keep them prisoners." Jack clenched his fists. "Then we need to be ready. We can't just wait for rescue. We have to find a way off this world." Velthari stood and looked toward the horizon. "Agreed. But first, we must understand this place better. Knowledge is the key to survival." Over the next few days, Jack and Velthari worked closely. They studied the data from the ruins and repaired more of the ancient machines. The crystal they had found pulsed softly, a steady light in the dark. Jack tested his repaired equipment each day, trying to send a signal to orbit. The signal was weak, interrupted by the planet's strange magnetic fields. But he didn't give up. Velthari taught Jack how to read the alien symbols and use her advanced scanners. Together, they decoded pieces of the ancient language. They discovered that the ruins were part of a network, possibly designed to test the cooperation between our different species. It is a trial, Velthari said, a way to see if visitors can work together to survive. Jack looked at her, surprised. So, it was made for people like us? Yes, she said, or others like us. It is a test of unity. One evening, as the twin moons rose high, Jack and Velthari shared a rare moment of quiet. They sat near a small fire, its warmth comforting in the cold desert night. Jack spoke first. I never imagined I'd get this close to an alien. But now, I see that we are not so different. Velthari smiled softly. We both fight for our people. We both want to live. Maybe that is enough. Jack nodded. Maybe it is. They talked late into the night, sharing stories of their homes, their hopes, and fears. Velthari told Jack about the ancient Cirellan warriors who defended their world. Jack shared tales of Earth's explorers and inventors. For the first time since the crash, the empty planet felt less lonely, but the peace was not to last. One morning, Jack's drone returned with a strange reading. A new energy pulse had been detected nearby. The source was coming closer, stronger. Velthari frowned. This is the challenge the ruins warned about. The test is beginning again. Jack prepared his gear. Whatever it is, we face it together. The ground trembled as the energy pulse approached, filling the air with a low hum. Sand swirled around them, and the ancient machines began to glow once more. Velthari and Jack stood side by side, ready for whatever trials awaited. Together, they faced the unknown, not as enemies, but as allies. The sun was just rising when Jack and Velthari woke to a strange humming sound. It filled the air, low and steady, like the planet itself was waking up. Outside their shelter, the ruins were glowing softly. The ancient machines, once silent, were now alive. Jack grabbed his pack and checked the equipment. The energy pulse is stronger than before. Whatever is down there, it's activating something. Velthari nodded. The machines must be responding to us, or to something nearby. Together they made their way to the ruins. The glow from the crystal in Jack's hand matched the light coming from the machines. It felt like the planet was communicating with them. At the center of the ruins, a large device stood tall, a beacon. The alien symbols and it pulsed in rhythm with the humming sound. This must be the source, Jack said. If we can send a signal from here, maybe someone will hear us. Velthari studied the device. I believe the power crystal can activate it fully. But we must be careful. This place is still a mystery. Jack began to work, connecting his tools to the beacon. Sparks flew, and the humming grew louder. Velthari kept watch, scanning the skies and the horizon for any signs of danger. Hours passed. Sweat dripped from Jack's brow as he adjusted wires and rerouted power. Velthari helped, passing him tools and keeping him focused. Finally, with a deep breath, Jack placed the crystal into a slot on the beacon. The machines around them glowed brightly and a beam of light shot straight into the sky. Jack looked up. Signal sent. They waited. The silence was thick. Then from the heavens a faint reply came, a series of rhythmic pulses like a heartbeat. Velthari smiled. We are not alone. Someone is answering. But the joy was short-lived. The ground shook violently. Sand and dust rose in a huge cloud. The ancient machine suddenly shifted, revealing new passageways underground. Jack and Velthari exchanged a look. We need to explore, Velthari said. This might be the key to escaping. They descended into the newly opened tunnels, the walls glowing with faint blue light. The air was cooler and the silence was different here, alive with energy. Deeper inside, they found rooms filled with strange technology. Panels showed star maps and unknown planets. At the center was a large console with a holographic interface. Jack's fingers danced across the controls. This looks like a control room. Maybe it's connected to the rest of the network. Velthari activated her scanners. It is. This is a central hub. It could control many of the planet's systems. Suddenly, a hologram flickered to life. It showed a figure, tall and wise, speaking in a language they could not understand. But the meaning was clear. A challenge. Jack frowned. The message says we must prove our unity, work together or face the consequences. Velthari nodded. It is a test. The machine watches us. It wants to know if we can cooperate. The tunnel doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. The air grew tense. Jack took Velthari's hand. We've come this far, we can do this. She squeezed his hand back. Together. The first challenge appeared, a complex puzzle of lights and symbols. Jack studied it carefully. We need to match the patterns. Velthari used her knowledge of alien languages to decode the symbols. They represent trust, courage, and balance. Working side by side, they solved the puzzle. Lights blinked and a door opened to the next chamber. The second challenge was physical, a test of strength and agility. They had to move across a series of platforms suspended above a deep pit. Velthari led, her alien agility unmatched. Jack followed, steady and careful. They reached the other side safely. The machine acknowledged their success. The final test was the hardest, a moral choice presented by the machine. A holographic image showed two lives in danger. Saving one would cost the other. Jack looked at Velthari, torn. What do we do? Velthari's voice was steady. We find a way to save both. Together they worked quickly, combining their skills and knowledge. They solved the impossible task by using the machine's own systems to create a safe path for both lives. The machine's glow softened. The tests were complete. A voice echoed in their minds, calm and wise. You have proven your unity. You are worthy. The tunnel doors opened. Outside, the storm had cleared. The sky was bright. Jack and Velthari stepped into the light, stronger and closer than before. They had passed the trial. The air inside the ancient chamber was cool but filled with tension. Jack and Velthari stood side by side, their breaths steady but hearts racing. The last test was over, but the machine had one final trial for them, a trial designed not just to test their skills, but their trust and unity. The walls around them began to glow, revealing a new challenge. A large platform divided into two halves. Each half had different controls, puzzles, and obstacles. To succeed, both had to work perfectly together. Jack looked at Velthari. Looks like this one needs us to be in sync. Velthari nodded, her eyes sharp and focused. Then we must trust each other completely. They stepped onto their respective sides of the platform. The floor shifted beneath their feet as the trial began. Jack's side presented a maze of wires and buttons. Each wrong move sent a gentle electric shock, not harmful, but enough to warn him to be careful. Velthari's side was a physical obstacle course. She had to dodge laser grids, climb walls, and press switches, all timed perfectly with Jack's actions. The two could see each other, but could only communicate through brief radio messages. Every second counted. Press the red button now, Jack called out as he studied his panel. Velthari timed her jump through the laser beams perfectly and hit a switch on her side. Done. Your turn to reroute the power. Jack carefully moved wires, rerouting energy through the system. A section of the wall opened, revealing another puzzle, this time a sequence of symbols to press. Symbols match the ones we saw in the ruins, Velthari said. Try trust and balance, then courage. Jack pressed the buttons in order, his fingers steady despite the pressure. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the chamber. The floor beneath them began to tilt, forcing both to adjust their balance. Velthari kept steady on her feet while Jack braced himself, moving quickly to keep the circuits connected. Almost there, Jack said, sweat on his brow. Velthari's sharp eyes scanned the room. Watch out, a power surge coming. Jack's fingers flew over the controls, shutting down a dangerous overload just in time. Both exhaled deeply as the floor leveled again. The final stage was a challenge of faith. A screen lit up, showing holographic images of themselves. It asked a question in alien symbols. Velthari decoded, "Who will you trust when all is lost?" Jack looked at Velthari. "I trust you." Velthari nodded. "I trust you." The machine seemed to sense their answer. The lights dimmed, then brightened in celebration. The doors opened, revealing a path back to the surface. Jack stepped forward. "We did it," Velthari smiled. "Together we are stronger than any test." Outside, the sun was high, shining bright on the empty planet. Their shelter stood behind them, a small sign of their fight to survive. Jack and Velthari looked at each other with new respect and friendship. "This planet may be empty," Jack said, "but it brought us together." "And that makes it full," Velthari nodded. "We will tell our people what we have learned. Maybe one day others will come and we will be ready." Jack smiled. "Maybe they will, and maybe humanity and the Sorellans will stand side by side, no longer strangers but allies." As they prepared to leave the ruins behind, a soft pulse echoed from the ancient machine, a reminder that this was only the beginning. For Jack and Velthari, the trial had ended, but a new chapter was about to begin. The sky above the empty planet was bright and clear. After days of trials and survival, Jack and Velthari stood at the highest hill near the ruins. Before them, the vast landscape stretched, endlessly: rocky plains, ancient stones, and endless sky. A soft hum filled the air. From above, a sleek ship approached, its engines cutting smoothly through the thin atmosphere. The ship's design was both human and Sorellan, proof of a growing alliance between their peoples. Jack's heart beat faster. "Is that—" Velthari nodded. "A rescue vessel. A joint mission. They've been searching for us." As the ship landed nearby, a team of humans and Sorellans stepped out, eyes wide with relief and wonder. Their commander, a tall human woman, rushed forward. "Lieutenant Reed, Commander Velthari, we thought you were lost." Jack smiled tiredly. "We're alive, and we've learned much." Velthari added, "This planet is not empty. It is a test, a challenge from an ancient race." The commander looked at the ruins behind them. "Your story will change everything. Our governments will want to hear it." Jack and Velthari exchanged a glance. They had come far, from strangers stranded on a hostile world to partners who had passed a test meant for legends. On board the rescue ship, the two shared their discoveries. The ancient ruins were part of a vast network built by a long-lost civilization. The energy pulse that caused the crash was a defense, designed to test any intelligent species that entered the system. Velthari explained, "The machines demand cooperation and unity. Those who pass gain knowledge and power. Those who fail never leave," Jack added. "We were lucky, but luck was not enough. It was our teamwork that saved us." The rescue team listened intently, their faces filled with awe and hope. "This changes everything," the commander said. "If other races encounter this network, humanity and the Sorellans must be ready to face it together." Days later, as the rescue ship lifted off, Jack and Velthari looked out at the planet shrinking below them. Velthari said quietly, "This is only the first test. There are more like this in the galaxy." Jack smiled. "Then we better be ready. For us, and for everyone else." Velthari placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Together." Jack nodded. "Together." As the stars stretched out before them, they knew their journey was far from over. They had survived an empty planet, passed an ancient trial, and formed a bond that would change the future. And somewhere in the galaxy, the ancient machine waited, watching for the next visitors to face the trial. But humanity was no longer alone.